My name's Ethan Cole, and I used to believe that love could weather anything. Turns out, love doesn't pay the bills. And it sure as hell doesn't stop someone from walking away once you've got nothing left to give. I was 44 the night I watched my marriage collapse in a hotel room just off Route 22 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I remember the sound of rain hitting the cracked window, the smell of old carpet and cigarette ghosts, and the single sentence that ended 15 years of my life. I deserve more than this, Ethan. That's what Lydia said. Calm, unshaken, like she'd rehearsed it 100 times in front of a mirror. She didn't shout, didn't cry, just handed me a manila envelope that smelled faintly of her perfume. Inside were divorce papers, already signed on her end. I sat there, staring at her signature, thinking about all the nights I'd stayed up, worrying how to keep the lights on, how to make the next mortgage payment, how to keep her comfortable while she fought for her life. 3 months earlier, she was dying, and I was willing to burn my world to save her. Lydia was diagnosed with breast cancer last November. Stage 3. Aggressive, the kind of news that punches the air out of you and leaves you blinking at the floor. I'd been laid off 6 weeks before that from Rhinex Steel, where I'd worked nearly 20 years. Foreman, union, good pay, decent life. But the company downsized, and I was one of the numbers on a spreadsheet that got erased. When Lydia's diagnosis came, we didn't have much left. The insurance lapsed when my severance ran out. I begged her doctor to give us time. He said time was the one thing we didn't have. Surgery needed to happen now. So I did what any husband would do when love meets desperation. I sold the house. I sold the car. I cashed out my pension early, took loans from old buddies, pawned my tools, everything that had built the life she said she wanted. The surgery was brutal, but she made it. The doctors called her recovery a miracle. I called it purpose. For months. I lived in a cheap roadside motel while she healed, woke up at 4 a.m. every day to load delivery trucks for a warehouse that paid $15 an hour. I'd come home with my back screaming, hands cracked and blistered, and still I'd make her tea, help her to bed, and tell her she was beautiful, even when she hated her reflection. I thought love like that meant something. I thought it counted. But one morning, I came back from work and found her bags by the door. Her sister, Clara, stood there beside her, arms folded, face full of satisfaction. Lydia wouldn't meet my eyes. "I can't do this anymore," she said. "You've changed, Ethan. You're not the man I married." I remember laughing, just once, bitterly. "No, Lydia, I'm the man who saved your life." She didn't flinch. She just said it again. Slower this time. Like she was reading a line she wanted me to memorize. "I deserve better." And she walked out. The thing about losing everything isn't the silence that comes after. It's the echo. The way every small noise reminds you of what used to fill the room. I stayed in that motel for weeks. The air conditioner rattled like an old man clearing his throat. The neighbors fought through the walls. Every night I'd stare at the peeling paint and wonder what the hell just happened to me. Lydia didn't call. Clara didn't either. The few friends I had left stopped checking in. You can only listen to so much tragedy before people start ducking your calls. Then one morning there was a knock at my door. A man in a navy suit stood outside, holding a briefcase. He was tall, white hair combed neatly, eyes sharp. "Ethan Cole?" he asked. "Yeah, my name is Harold Whitmore. I represent the estate of your grandfather, Walter Hensley." That name hit like static. "I don't have a grandfather," I said. "He died before I was born." "Not exactly," Harold said, adjusting his glasses. Your mother's father. They had a falling out decades ago. He passed last month and left behind an inheritance. You're his only heir. I just stared at him. An inheritance? From a man I never met? Harold opened his briefcase, took out a file, and laid it on the small motel table. Inside, a property deed, a bank statement, and a handwritten letter. The property was an old auto repair shop on the south end of Pittsburgh. 3 bays, a small office, a parking lot, paid off in full. The bank account had $62,000 sitting in it. The letter was short, written in shaky cursive. Ethan, I wasn't a good father to your mother. Maybe this is my way of fixing what I broke. This place meant everything to me once. Make something of it. Walter. I read it twice, then looked up at Harold. This real? Very, he said with a small smile. You can sign the transfer papers today if you'd like. The shop's been closed for years, but the land alone is valuable. You could sell it or reopen it. I sat there, staring at the papers, feeling something shift inside me. Not joy, not quite hope either. Just life again, a reason to move. When can I see it? I asked. The shop was a mess, dust thick as fog, windows cracked, oil stains soaked into the concrete floor. But I didn't care. It smelled like work, like purpose. Harold said my grandfather had run it himself for 40 years. After he died, no one touched it. Tools still hung on the walls. A faded calendar from 1999 curled on the edge. This is yours now, Harold said. Do with it what you will. I nodded slowly. I could fix this. I would fix this. A few days later, I started cleaning it out, alone at first. Then Tommy, an old buddy from Rhinex, came by when he heard the news. You opening a shop again? He asked, sweeping dust into a pile. Maybe. Haven't decided yet. You always were good with engines, you said. You could make this place something again. That night, I sat in the office, staring at the ledger Walter left behind. My name on the deed, a little money in the account, a roof that didn't leak. It wasn't much. But after everything, it was enough. For the first time in months, I slept. 2 weeks later, Lydia called. I didn't recognize the number at first. Ethan? I froze. What do you want? I heard about the shop, she said softly. I wanted to see you, maybe talk. My chest went cold. How'd you hear? Clara's friend works at the county office. Word gets around. I didn't answer. Look, Ethan, she said, I was scared before. Everything was falling apart. I didn't know what I wanted. But maybe we could. Stop, I said. Don't finish that sentence. She sighed. Can we just meet? One coffee? That's all. Period. I almost hung up, but something inside me wanted to look her in the eye again, to see if there was anything real left. So I agreed. We met at a diner on Carson Street. She looked healthy, glowing even, wearing new clothes, gold bracelet I didn't recognize. I've missed you, she said, smiling like the last few months hadn't happened. You look good. I wanted to laugh. I hadn't looked good in years. She leaned forward. I think we can fix this. We've been through too much to just throw it away. Maybe I could help you with the shop. Start fresh? I looked at her for a long time. The same woman who said I wasn't enough, who left me when I had nothing. No, I said. Her face froze. Ethan, please, don't do this. I stood up, left enough cash on the table for both coffees, and walked out. Her voice followed me to the door. You'll regret this. Maybe, but not that night. I threw myself into the work. The shop became my world. Tommy helped me replace the lifts and fix the wiring. We painted the walls, cleaned the floors, replaced the signage. I was too busy to think about Lydia. Too tired to care. But a week later, she showed up at the shop, holed up in a black SUV that looked expensive, stepped out with sunglasses and an attitude. "I'm still your wife," she said, walking right up to me. "No, Lydia. You're a signature away from not being." She smiled thinly. "Not until it's final. And that means everything you've acquired since I left is technically marital property." I frowned. "You've got to be kidding." "I talked to a lawyer," she said. "You got that inheritance while we were still married. That means I'm entitled to half. Either we sell the property and split the profit, or you buy me out." My jaw tightened. "You left me, Lydia." "Doesn't matter legally," she said. "You know how this works. I didn't want it to come to this, but you're forcing my hand." Then she turned and walked back to her car, leaving me standing there in a cloud of dust and rage. That night, I called Harold. He sighed when I told him. "She's not entirely wrong," he said. "Inherited assets are usually separate, but if improvements are made during the marriage, they can argue it became joint." "So she could take half?" "Possibly, unless we can prove bad faith or fraud." I stared at the floor for a long time. "Fraud. Harold," I said quietly, "can you find someone who digs into people's lives? Discreetly?" He hesitated. "A private investigator?" "Yeah." He was quiet a moment, then said, "I know a guy. He's not cheap." "I don't care," I said. "Do it." 3 days later, a thick envelope arrived at the shop. Inside was a report that changed everything. Emails, bank records, photos. Lydia had been planning to leave me long before the cancer. Clara had pushed her to do it, telling her she deserved a real man. Someone ambitious, someone rich. Then, after the diagnosis, they saw an opportunity. The report showed Clara's bank transfers to Lydia. $500 here, $800 there. Small, but steady. And the kicker? A man named Ryan Holt, a medical rep Lydia met during her treatments. They'd been seeing each other for months. While I was selling everything I owned to save her life, she was planning a new one with him. That night, I sat in the empty shop, staring at the photos. Lydia laughing in a restaurant with Ryan. Clara's smug text messages calling me a charity case. I felt calm. Cold, but calm. I called Harold. "File a counterclaim," I said. "Fraud, adultery, conspiracy, whatever you can. I want her nowhere near this shop." "Ethan, that's going to get ugly." "Good," I said quietly. "Then maybe she'll finally recognize the man she underestimated." The thing about revenge is, it doesn't start as revenge. It starts as silence. The kind that fills the space where love used to live. For weeks, I didn't tell anyone what I'd found in that report. Not Tommy, not Harold, not even myself, really. I just kept working. Wrench in hand, oil on my skin, music humming low from an old radio. But under that calm was something sharp. A quiet, steady kind of fire. Lydia filed her motion a month later, claiming entitlement to half the shop, plus compensatory damages for emotional distress. Her lawyer used words like partnership contribution and marital entitlement. I just smiled when Harold read them out loud. "Let her dig her own grave," I said. He nodded slowly. "You sure you want to handle it this way?" "Completely," I responded. The first thing I did was turn the shop into a real business. Registered it officially under a new name, Coal Restoration and Customs, LLC. I opened a separate account, brought in Tommy as a partner. Ownership, 51% me, 49% him. That 2% was the difference between her touching my legacy and watching it slip through her fingers. Then, with Harold's help, I transferred the land title into the company's name. Every tool, every invoice, every receipt went through the business. Paper shields, Harold called them. Strong ones. I liked that phrase. Lydia must have thought I was bluffing. She showed up again, this time with her lawyer, a man in a tailored suit who looked like he charged by the heartbeat. They stood in the office, pretending not to notice the oil stains on the floor. Her voice was soft, polite, fake. "Ethan, we don't want to make this ugly. If you sell, we can split everything cleanly and move on." I leaned back in my chair. "And if I don't?" The lawyer cleared his throat. "Then we'll be forced to proceed with litigation. We have proof that marital funds were used to improve this property." I smiled a little. "Really? Because as far as I can tell, every dollar came from the business, which, by the way, was formed after you left." The lawyer frowned. "That's impossible. The improvements started before the divorce was filed." "Exactly," I said. "Before the divorce was filed. Not before you left. Big difference." Lydia crossed her arms. "You think you can twist this around?" I shrugged. "No, I'm just telling the truth. You walked out on me when I had nothing. Now I have something, and suddenly you want to rewrite history." Her lawyer started to say something, but I cut him off. "You'll get the paperwork soon. You might want to read it carefully before you push this further." 2 weeks later, Harold filed the counterclaim. Fraud, infidelity, conspiracy to defraud marital assets. He attached the photos, the texts, the bank statements, all neatly bound in a folder labeled Evidence A. Lydia didn't see that coming. She withdrew her motion within a week, but I wasn't done. Not yet. You see, revenge isn't about shouting or breaking things. It's about making sure the person who tried to destroy you has to live with themselves when they realize they failed. So I made sure Lydia saw everything she gave up. I rebuilt that shop from the ground up. Fresh paint, new lifts, a waiting room with coffee and clean chairs. The sign out front gleamed under the sun. Coal Restoration and Customs. We got our first big contract from a trucking company within a month. Then a local dealership came calling. Before long, business was good. Real good. And because life likes to add a twist of irony, one of my new clients turned out to be Ryan Holt. Yeah, that Ryan. He walked in with his company van one Friday, smiling like a salesman who never heard the word no. "Hey, I heard you're the guy to see about restorations," he said, extending his hand. I wiped mine on a rag before shaking his. "That's me." He glanced around, impressed. "Nice setup. You built all this?" "From scratch," I said. "You could say it's a family legacy." He laughed. "Well, I'll definitely be back." As he left, I noticed the bracelet Lydia used to wear on the dashboard of his car. Gold. Same one she wore that day in the diner. I didn't say a word. I just smiled. By spring, the shop was thriving. Tommy handled most of the floor work. I managed clients and bookkeeping. We were finally turning real profit. One evening, I was closing up when I saw Lydia's car parked across the street. She sat inside for a long time before stepping out. No sunglasses this time. No smugness. "Ethan," she said quietly, "can we talk?" I hesitated, then nodded toward the bench outside. She looked tired, not sick, just worn down in that way people look when life starts catching up. I didn't respond. She took a shaky breath. I thought leaving was the right thing. I thought I'd find something better, but I didn't. I lost everything that mattered. I see you now, and, Lydia, I said gently, you don't need to do this. I do, she said. I was wrong. You were enough. You always were.